Your body's amazingly resilient. You do not have to have it all figured out to heal and thrive.
Why do you think people don't want to find ways to live healthier? Like, what is the problem here?
There's a lot of deep indoctrination where it blinds people.
60% of Americans have at least one chronic disease.
What we're doing to the planet is impacting our health.
Our health is not a bipartisan issue.
You cannot shame your way into wellness. You can't heal a body you hate.
Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Biohack-it. And very rarely do I bring on guests that have had it season 1, but sometimes they're so incredible and you guys love the episodes so much. So I brought back on one of our favorite functional MDs, Dr. Will Cole. You are a trailblazer. You have one of the best telemedicine practice, the biggest telemedicine practice in the US. You really scaled and built it. You have your own podcast, The Art of Being Well, and you also are a best-selling author. So thank you for being back on.
Thanks for having me. Wow, I'm a two-peater.
Yeah, you are. You're a two-peter because you were so damn good.
Oh, thanks.
So I wanted to get into it. From when you started your practice, just backing up there for a second, to where health has shifted now, what is the biggest thing you've seen?
I would say a lot. We're talking 15, 16 years of professionally. I started the telehealth center 16 years ago. I have this weird, unique perspective of like all 50 states, people outside of the country getting healthy. So I want people to know like that's sort of the context that I have there. And before even professionally, I was a weird health nerd kid that just always liked biohacking, and I didn't call it biohacking back then, but as a 16, 17-year-old kid in high school, I'd use my paycheck at the finish line. I sold shoes at the mall, and I would use my paycheck to go like the latest superfoods and herbs that I'd read about. So I'm like thinking, to answer your question, I'm thinking, okay, what's changed in health since then, let alone professionally? But certainly since professionally for the past 15 years is the awareness of what we do.
Yeah.
We're still scratching the surface, but I feel like it's really the advent. First, I will say it was someone like Dr. Oz. I have to give credit. And look, he got a lot of pushback when his show was on. He's getting more pushback now. But I really saw years ago when he had his television show, and we're talking about in the mid-2000s, like the early 2000s, mid-2000s till now, he got the average middle American to be learning about some random food nutrition science or this wellness trend and kind of is it legit or not? Is it fad or is it some science to back it up? I think he did a lot to move the needle, and I had a chance to talk to him recently. I was with you and thank him for that, because I really felt like as far as a cultural awareness standpoint, he played a significant role. And then after Dr. Oz, and I'm sure there were other voices in the mainstream world, but it was mainly him as far as health is concerned. And then after that, it was the explosion of podcasts and the sort of the decentralization, the democratization of this information. So it wasn't just ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox. It was like, okay, no matter who you are, there were less gatekeepers on this information, and they weren't being advertised with special interests. So I would say that's a significant thing that changed, is just the growing awareness of people to having agency over their health, which I think is a positive thing, but it apparently is very offensive and needs to be suppressed here and there.
Talking about like Dr. Oz's influence and all that he kind of paved, but isn't it crazy that the more awareness we're also getting, more people are still getting sick? I think it's like 60% of Americans have at least one chronic disease, and by the time they're in their 60s, tend to normally have 2 to 3. Yeah,
and 40% of Americans have 2 or more chronic diseases. We are home to 70% of the world's pharmaceutical profits. Yeah, I mean, 93% of America is not metabolically healthy. The average American has 3 times the chance of being diagnosed with an autoimmune disease than that same age group had in the 1980s. The average young adult today has the same level of anxiety and depression as the average psychiatric patient had in the 1950s. Yeah, but that's why I think this information is growing, because it's born out of necessity. It's like we aren't getting the answers on the 15-minute visit when you on your visit, and there's no indictment on the doctor. It's the system. Most of my colleagues are conventionally trained doctors, and they've had to then say, I have to leave the system to go learn about functional medicine, because I am seeing these chronic diseases, autoimmune conditions, fertility issues, hormonal problems, mental health issues, and I can't keep people healthy within the system. So I want to be clear, like, this is not like throwing shade on any doctor. or even a medical system, it is large awareness of how we do things needs to change. So, but that's, I think, from that pain that culturally we're feeling, that has really pushed the people's curiosity and into wanting to find answers and solutions.
And talking about something you touched upon just earlier, talking about how people like Dr. Oz, sometimes even yourself, your voices are silenced because people don't want this messaging to get out. How do you navigate something like that, right? On social media, and people come at you and call you names and kind of almost troll and kind of silence.
Yeah.
And 2, why do you think people don't want to find ways to live healthier? Like, what is the problem here?
Yeah. What should be a positive thing, it is, because it is positive. Like when you're doing my job and you see people getting healthy, 100% positive. You're dealing with people with heavy health issues. I'm not saying it's a quick fix, but it's overall positive. Someone's lab's improving, life improving, joy coming back into their life, healthy shifts happening in their family and friend circle groups as well, because through just influence of them, inspiration of them getting healthy. It is my job on the telehealth patient side is almost 100% positive.
Yeah.
And we're talking about heavy autoimmune issues, heavy hormonal fertility issues, heavy inflammatory problems, digestive problems. We're talking about walk in the park, take this supplement, in 20 days, you'll be all better. We're talking about healing and optimization. Okay, if that could be 100% positive, how the heck, where is the disconnect? When you go scroll on social media and something is so called dangerous, and it's made to be people to fear it, and we're going to hurt people, or we're preying on people. I mean, that's the sort of spooky language that's being used. It is such an inversion of the truth. It is such a lie, soaked in virtue signaling. It is the Orwellian upside down, is the best way I could say it, because you just have to expect it. When you're going to go on social media, there'll be a lot of good. You're going to share lots of good news. People that have ears to hear, they will hear. People that can see with their eyes, they will see. Because there's no faith. There's no do you believe in it? It's like, well, labs are improving, data's improving,
the
lives
science
are improving.
is there.
We're just applying it in people's lives. Sometimes it's emerging stuff. Sometimes it's anecdotal stuff. Sometimes it's really solid science stuff. But it's improving people's lives. So for people that want to see what's actually happening, they'll see. But I just think there's a lot of programming. This is the best way I could say it. There's a lot of deep indoctrination. There's a lot of deep tribalism where it blinds people. And there's a lot of, we can call it derangement. I think there's a derangement to it, that it's been so politicized, and it's so stupid because it's not political at all. This is human health. I want this for everybody, no matter who you are.
Yeah. I think it's what you just touched upon right now is our health is not a bipartisan issue. It should not be seen. It's either you're left or right. Health is health. Everybody deserves to be healthy in America, no matter who you voted for and why you voted for that person. But why is this, what we've just experienced with this election and everything going on, why has the right adopted this trying to put Americans' health first policy, and why has the left moved so far away from it? I just don't understand when that even happened.
Yeah, I don't know, because to me, you and I have talked about this before, but I don't even know if right and left even makes sense anymore. I don't know if right and left, the concepts even make sense anymore. Because you're looking at a lot of us in health. Most of us are probably center left, libertarian, socially liberal people, but we are homeless. So politically homeless. And we have to kind of say, okay, what is the group that is more likely to be okay with diversity of thought, free exchange of ideas, innovation, not groupthink, tolerance, actual all liberal ideas, liber, that word in liberal means free thinking, free person. So it's that sort of classical liberal ideas. I just think anybody that's interested in this classically liberal ideas, we have to go into, if you want to call us independence, into a system. I think that it's a realignment what's happened since 2020, really. It accelerated a realignment. I saw other political historians take it back to the 90s, where even way before, it was a slow shift where a lot of and I'm moving out of health for a second, but a lot of blue dog Democrats, like where we are recording this right now, we're in Western Pennsylvania, Rust Belt, they're classically blue collar union Democrats. But since the 90s, there's been a shift where they've felt, the working class American in middle America has felt like the Democratic Party has abandoned them.
Yes.
And since the 90s, these are political historians' words, not mine, but I could see the truth in it living here and these being my people, is they felt forgotten. And the Democratic Party since the 90s became more and more elite. Whereas now, if you look at even the last couple elections, like most of the wealth in the United States voted for the Democratic Party. But yet most of the middle class and working class people voted the other way. So I think that it happened since the 90s. It's been starting since the 90s, but accelerated during the pandemic. And it really was the convergence with health information. It was like, wait, I thought this was the party of free speech, and the people. The people raging against the machine, like speaking truth to power. But yet we were being policed. So it caused a lot of political homelessness, I think, of people to wake up and saying like, ooh, dang. So I think that now it's the statists versus the populists, and health has been, I think it's really was the health that was the awakening. Health topics was the awakening for a lot of people. So I think that's why. I think that you have the working class people were thrown out. They were politically homeless at first. And then wellness and the moms out there, a lot of the moms out there, they were just gaslit for so long that we were tired of it.
I think the moms are the ones who won the election this time. They were the reason Bobby Kennedy joining kind of the Trump administration and all of that. Without the moms, this wouldn't be possible. And it's because just what you said, they weren't being heard, and they were really the ones who came out and said, enough is enough.
Yeah. Absolutely. I saw it because I've been in the autism community in functional medicine. I was in the advisory board for Generation Rescue, which was Jenny McCarthy's nonprofit. And Bobby Kennedy was always at the same events and friendly and knew each other in that space. So those moms I've seen for years. And you're right, there's so much medical gaslighting, and I think that just came to a head. Because like the autism community, the moms that kind of asked questions already knew it, but then it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it was way more than autism. It was like any health decision for your kid. There was so much like they doth protest too much. Every time you asked a question, you were kind of silenced.
If you're serious about your long-term health, there's one vitamin you're probably not getting enough of. No matter how clean your diet is, nearly 97% of people in the Western world are deficient in vitamin K2, and most don't even realize it. That's why K2 is nearly non-existent in modern diets, but it plays a huge role in heart health, circulation, bone strength, and even brain function. So here's why it matters so much. Low K2 levels can show up as weak bones, stiff muscle, bruising, wrinkles, and even forgetfulness and brain fog. It also is linked to major cardiovascular and bone health issues down the line. That's why I'm so excited about Just Thrive's K27, the only K2 supplement on the market that comes from 100% organic chickpea natto, the best source of K2. Delivers 320 mcg of pharmaceutical grade K27, the optimal daily dose. Has guaranteed potency so your body actually absorbs what it needs. It's microbiologist formulated, clinically tested, and supports your heart, bones, brain, and circulation at the source. I've made it a part of my daily routine, and I think you'll love it too. Check it out at justthrivehealth.com and use code Biohack-it for a discount and enjoy. I think there's so much that's going to come up to this point, that so much is going to be unraveled in America. I know the JFK files just came out, and I'm like, the files are not really showing everything. There's still like pieces of it that are missing, because I think if Americans really woke up and found out how wrong we have done, like our politicians and people in office and offices that were meant to keep us safe have actually gone against us, I don't think Americans are fully, they're prepared for what is yet to come out from there.
Yeah, I know, but they've eroded trust so much. When you look at the military industrial complex, the censorship industrial complex, big pharma, big food, the media. Yeah. I know maybe I'm too like Pollyanna and utopian about this, but my hope is that we can start to rebuild trust is through like transparency.
Correct.
And sunlight being the best disinfectant. And it's like, I would love for Americans to like trust the things they saw in the news. And there's not some ulterior motive of through the power of editing and spinning and suppressing information. I'd love to be able to trust the research that's out there as a clinician and realize like, no, 50 to 90% of the research being funded by big pharma and other special interests. It's like, well, let's actually truly have trust in corporate and government agencies. So that's my hope, is that we start to improve, because it's not, if we don't, how are we going to have trust in just normal life, right? I mean, it's like, it's not, we have to improve it to survive, in my opinion.
I 100% agree with you, but that's where a lot of wealthy Americans who can are moving out of the country, because they're like, you know what? You're poisoning us left, right, and center. You're not transparent with us. And yes, maybe other countries do the same, but it's just not at this level. And they're like, well, if we can leave and we can uproot and we have the money, we're exiting for a better quality of life in other places.
Right. And then so many of them, we're talking about middle class Rust Belt America. We can't do that. So
that's what I'm saying.
It's like we have to find a better way
to move forward and move through this. In your practice, what is the number one issue patients come to you with, and what is the number one treatment that you think has worked across the board?
Wow. Well, look, I think the basics work across the board. Most of our telehealth patients, by the time they meet us, they've done a lot of the basics. My job is to fine tune the basics, to optimize the basics for their own bio-individuality. So, I mean, anti-inflammatory diet, I would say, works across the board. But I would say these things that we like to keep in, if we like wellness, there's so much stress the human microbiome, the human body is under, that we don't have the resilience that our great-grandparents had. So you may think, well, it's not that bad, but it's really, I would meet your body where it's at, meet your gut health where it's at. And sometimes that takes tighter protocols. So I think that's why things like the GAPS protocol, or, a keto type of protocol, when you look at people's body's relationship with carbs, or a carnivore protocol when you look at people's immune system's relationship with plant anti-nutrients. There are things that are like carbs, right? Whole food carbs, nothing inherently wrong with fiber-rich carbs, but when someone's so insulin resistant, they need to meet their their metabolism where it's at. If somebody's immune system's so hypervigilant, there's nothing wrong with fruits and vegetables, but you have to meet, for an overzealous immune system, these sort of tighter carnivore adjacent protocols. They work for some people that need it, because it's not the food's fault. It's what we've done to our environment, where we're overreacting to all this stuff that is otherwise innocuous or beneficial. So I think that looking at food and the landscape of clinical nutrition protocols is something that, when you unlock the sort of nuance and context of the cases, that's something that works across the board. I mean, because inflammation is a commonality between just about every health problem, things that are immunomodulating are something that work across the board, like anti-inflammatory things. Phosphatidylcholine is something that I love. Curcumin is something that I love. CoQ10 is something that I love. A good omega fatty acid is something that I love to, it's like things that have been shown in science to lower or support healthy inflammation levels, lower inflammation, however you want to put that, are something that I think is fundamental living in this world today, whether it's an autoimmune, metabolic, hormonal, fertility issue. These are things to consider. There's a lot of common, if you look at like if I'm thinking of your word across the board, like different nutrient deficiencies that you see pretty ubiquitously. So I would say magnesium, like magnesium RBC is that blood test that we run. It's low in most people. So getting a good quality magnesium complex.
What's your favorite one?
I like complexes that have different types of magnesium. If I hadn't to have my favorite one, and if I did it, like if they were like the Power Rangers, and I picked like my favorite Power Ranger, which the green one was my favorite back in the day, but it'd be magnesium threonate.
Okay.
Magnesium threonate passes through the blood-brain barrier. When I do experiment with that specific one that has bisglycinate in there too, but I just love the science, I guess, around magnesium threonate. If I had to have an opinion about magnesium, that's how weird nerdy I am. But the vitamin D, everyone talks about that, but it is true. Like vitamin D3, K2, like getting your fat soluble vitamins, which food can be a source of fat for some, especially vitamin A.
But we're not getting enough in from our food anymore.
Yeah, right. But supplementing appropriately, getting your numbers tested, right? These are fat soluble, so they can accumulate in the body. More isn't better, but finding an amount that works for you and testing over time is another one. And then something that you and I have talked about that I do see clinically a lot is, especially for women, especially cycling women, is iron. Iron can be really throwing off hormone health, energy, brain health, recovery, so many different things, mitochondrial function. And we want ferritin or stored iron to be at least 80. That is rare. And now look, I'm talking to people that have some optimization. So I know that I'm not saying maybe the average American, but I think they're pretty, it's sad that they're more and more becoming more average, common, not normal. And optimizing not just ferritin, but whole iron series, like serum iron, iron saturation, MCV, MCHE, like a whole MC series, total iron binding capacity, like getting those numbers locked in the optimal zone. So those are some like across the board things, if you want to say, that work. These are all pieces to the puzzle. There's not like a magic pill, but it's something that they are fundamental to human health. And they're, if you use that predicated on across the board, they're the most common. And something methylation support, I didn't say that. Like you can get that from food, certainly. But getting B12 and folate and peroxidine and these riboflavin, these are essential B vitamins that we need for methylation. Homocysteine, we want it. Homocysteine in functional medicine is an inflammatory marker to be under 7. There's studies that show that even slightly like subclinical homocysteine levels increases blood-brain barrier permeability. Neuroinflammation. It acts like a neurotoxin. It increases things called leaky, they call it leaky brain syndrome, which is, I don't like saying that because it's like people think like, it was liquid coming out of my ear, like what's going on? But it's increased blood-brain barrier permeability. So someone that can have leaky gut syndrome, things passing through the gut lining, creating inflammation. Same thing, similar mechanism in the brain, which is linked to neuroinflammation, which is the commonality between all these different neuroinflammatory, like things like anxiety, depression, Alzheimer's, anything from mild symptoms to severe symptoms. It's chronic neuroinflammation is a component. Homocystine's implicated in that. So, and it's also linked to heart attack and stroke and other things. Like that's why they run it in the conventional setting. So we want homocysteine to be under 7. So we need to recycle homocysteine into something called methionine. These B methylation support, these methylated B vitamins are part of that. Creatine is also implicated in methylation, which getting a good quality creatine is something that I think is great from obviously supporting lean muscle mass and energy production, but it's also great for brain function. And it's almost like a neurotropic. It's not classified as a neurotropic, but I see a neurotropic-like effect on it and improving mood, things like depression. So there's so much more, but these are some of the basics.
People aren't talking about this enough, but I truly want to optimize your health. We need to be paying attention to EMFs. We are constantly plugged in, surrounded by wireless signals, radiation, frequencies that our bodies have never, ever been able to handle at this level. Research has shown that EMFs can disrupt sleep, impact cellular function, and contribute to long-term health issues. Yet we're rarely talking about this or how to protect ourselves from this. This is why I was so excited when I first discovered Lila Quantum Tech. I met them 2 years ago at a biohacking conference in Austin and was absolutely blown away by the founder, Philip Mon. Hearing him on stage and learning about quantum energy technology completely shifted my perspective. I knew I had to try it for myself. And now, 2 years later, I'm so excited to have them partner with me on my podcast. One of my absolute favorite products, the Heal 360 capsule, which I wear on my quantum necklace every day. This isn't just any pendant. It's scientifically designed and quantumly charged to support your body's natural ability to heal, energize, and protect itself from harmful influences. People using it have reported more energy, mental clarity, better stress resilience, and relaxation, deeper sleep, and faster recovery. And that is also the feedback I got from our supper club when I gifted it to all our guests. Lila Quantum Tech is leading the way in quantum frequency healing with products designed to neutralize EMFs, enhance cellular function, and help your body operate at its best. I personally felt the difference since wearing Heal 360 capsule, and I think you'll love it too. Check it out at lilaq.com and use code Biohack-it for a discount. That is LEELAQ.com and use code Biohack-it. Happy healing. For anybody listening, they're like, we want to start our wellness journey, or we're getting into it. What are the top labs that, besides like, checking your iron levels and stuff, would you say are the 5 or 8 top labs they need to run?
Okay.
Because you post about that as well.
Yeah. So metabolic labs, when you look at the UNC study came a couple of years ago, it's estimated that 93% of the United States is metabolically unhealthy. About 7% of us is metabolically healthy. And that's things like glucose. We want fasting blood sugar to be under 90. We want A1C to be under 5.6. We want triglycerides or circulating fat to be under 100. We want to look at that triglyceride HDL ratio. We want HDL to be about 59. That's your good cholesterol. I would add in a nuclear magnetic resonance, which is a cardiometabolic lipid panel, right? We want small dense LDL particles to be low. We want ApoB, these other inflammatory cardiometabolic markers, to be low. We want LP little a to be in the optimal zone, these inflammatory markers. The NMR test would also measure the pattern of your lipids. So we want to be in pattern A, these non-oxidized, non-inflamed. Since 93% of people are going to not check all those boxes of being in the optimal zone, metabolic labs, I know you said 5 to 8, but I would just lump all those into like 1 if I'm being super liberal with my definition of 8. But I would say cardiometabolic labs, inflammation tests, which are intersected with cardiometabolic, but things like high sensitivity C-reactive protein to be under 1, homocysteine, as I mentioned, to be under 7. I would say a full thyroid panel. So TSH, T4, T3, free T3, free T4, thyroid antibodies, TPO, TGA. That's a lot, because so many people, especially women, have thyroid issues. And they may not be a primary hypothyroidism, and maybe it's an underconversion of T4 to T3. 80% of that conversion happens in the liver. Looking at liver health, like AST, ALT, GGT, looking at your active, and 20% is converted in the gut. So looking at your gut health, which, I'm trying to stick with the number 8 because Iman's telling me 8. So I'm trying
you can run wild and free.
Okay. And then the look at liver and gut health. And then I would say, looking at, I'll say environmental toxins is something that I will look at. These are not basic tests, right? All the things I just said are conventional, advanced biomarkers, and looking at optimal and not average. So keep in mind, for people that are listening, the labs reference range is based on an average of people who go to labs. People that go to labs are people with health problems. So I want to look at optimal, not average. Like, where is the body functioning the best? So all those things I just said, there's the lab reference range you're going to have from LabCorp and Quest or wherever you're going to. Yes, we use that, but we typically will look in functional medicine at a tighter interval within that larger reference range. Like, where does longevity reside? Where does health span reside? Where does people that live long, healthy lives reside? So that's the context of those labs matter. But the environmental toxin piece isn't typically ran. It's not typically ran. It's not ran at all in the conventional medicine model, but it's really important. Because why do people have these autoimmune issues and fertility issues? It is largely, not entirely, largely due to environmental factors. So to look at things like herbicides and pesticides, look at things like microplastics, look at things like PFAS, look at things like, there's so many different environmental flame retardants that are in so many different things. It's unreal. And that's part of sort of this realignment political that I have to go back to. It's like, we need to have healthy regulation about this stuff. We cannot have, for the sake of the people, we have not been protected, and we need to have transparency and protection around these things. But we have to pick up the pieces. It's already in the environment. So we have to look and see, how do we take agency over our own health? We can't control everything. We can't live in a bubble. Right. Bubble's probably plastic anyways. So you want to live life, not stress about this stuff. And I know that's easier said than done, but I want people, when I'm talking about this heavy stuff, your body's amazingly resilient. You do not have to have it all figured out to heal and thrive. I'm throwing a lot of stuff out here to empower you. And if this overwhelms you, take it step by step, lean into it, take it easy. Your body's amazing and resilient. You were born to thrive, and stressing about healthy things isn't good for your health. So if I could say that's not a lab, but something to think about. Hormones, I didn't mention that too, but hormones, like a free fraction, like Dutch test to look at all your hormones, is something that I would recommend. That was way more than 8, Iman.
No, but that's what we needed. That's why I want people to hear from you and see, what are you testing people for at your practice? How do you treat patients? What is your lens? This is all about getting people the power to make better decisions about their health, and they need to know all the different things. And by the way, a lot of the things you were saying, like vitamin D, K2, all of that stuff, also your thyroid panel, lipids, all of that, homocysteine. From a fertility aspect, we spoke about this earlier, all of this stuff really matters when it comes to your fertility. So if this stuff is not checked and it's off, I bet you anything you're probably going to have infertility, and the traditional fertility clinic is not checking for this stuff. So you need to make sure you advocate for yourself. I would say before you go down a fertility journey, meet with a functional medicine doctor, work with them, balance out your levels, try naturally before you even decide to go down the fertility route.
It's true. I mean, look, the most people are struggling with fertility statistically, and it's multifaceted, but I would say if you look at the low-hanging fruit, it is metabolic health, right? I mean, insulin resistance, it's just ground zero. Like, yes, we know it's more complex and complicated for other people, but like, all right, so for some people, they just have to clean up a few things and they'll be fine. Yeah. The body wants to
help you
to thrive, right? And for some people, of course, we have to dig in deeper and it's more complicated. I don't want to like make it reductive, but it is certainly start with the practical stuff and then lean in from there.
If you're spending hundreds on skincare but ignoring one of the most powerful anti-aging tools out there, you are missing out, my biohackers. I'm talking about red light therapy and Bond Charge's red light face mask. It has completely changed the game for me. Red light therapy isn't just another hype. It penetrates deep into the skin, boosting collagen, reducing inflammation, and easing signs of aging. And the best part, it's cordless, it's lightweight, and totally painless. So I can wear it while I'm getting work done, watching TV, or even making a quick smoothie for myself or taking my dogs for a walk. I've tried a lot of skincare treatments, and let's be honest, some of them are messy, others are time-consuming, or just plain uncomfortable. But this mask makes it so easy, just 10 minutes a day, and I've noticed my skin is brighter, clearer, and even more even-toned. No downtime, no hassle, and because Bond Charge products are HSA, FSA eligible, you can use your health-saving funds to invest in your skin. Trust me, you need this in your skincare routine ASAP. Right now, my listeners get 15% off when you order from bondcharge.com. Just use my exclusive code Biohack-it at checkout. That's bondcharge.com, plus you'll get free shipping and a 12-month warranty. Again, that's Biohack-it. Go grab yours now. Your skin will thank you later.
I want to talk quickly about a lot of women have trouble conceiving because of PCOS and endometriosis. Those are both metabolic health issues. Yeah. So can we expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, if going back to that UNC statistic, and even if you take more conservative statistics, I mean, it's the majority of Americans are somewhere on that insulin resistance spectrum, you know, and PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, is like a female hormone manifestation of insulin resistance. It's insulin resistance of your reproductive system. And all of these things that we're talking about in today's conversation is really supportive of blood sugar control, mitochondrial health, lowered inflammation levels, and blood sugar balance. So that's going to behoove fertility, and beyond fertility, just feeling great in your body, feeling more balanced and grounded and regulated throughout the day, just so you can be the best version of you, whether you choose to have children or not. And then endometriosis has a metabolic component, but it also has an autoimmune issue. So it's a sort of metabolic autoimmune convergence storm that I see more and more women struggling with things like endometriosis, adenomyosis, and we have to deal with the metabolic and the autoimmune component of it, really, because it's both. And I see more women having to have these procedures to clean up the amount of endometrial lining that's proliferating throughout their body, adhering to their organs. Common, not normal. The body's giving us like
a signal.
And as you, depending on what you think about climate change, but I think like obviously environmental pollutants is creating climate change and dysregulation in our planet. And as there's global climate change, there's physiological climate change in the form of chronic inflammation going on, as above, so below. Like, we're connected to nature. And you could look at somebody's labs and like, yeah, that is a microcosm of what's happening on a planetary level. It is all connected. Like, what we're doing to the soil microbiome, we're doing to our gut microbiome. And we have to realize that there has to be this holistic view to human health. And what we're doing to the planet is impacting our health.
Don't you think a lot of doctors are doing a disservice then, like traditionally trained OBGYNs, even some very traditionally trained IVF doctors or MDs and practitioners, when a woman walks into their practice and says, and they get diagnosed with PCOS, so endometriosis, they don't tell them about diet, supplementation, lowering inflammation levels, like their body's screaming for help. That is almost, I feel like, a disservice, but that is the medical like standard of care, as they call it.
Yeah.
That for me is a huge disservice to the average American.
Well, yeah, because it's like you said, IVF is so expensive, but there's a lot more effective options, or at least should be explored because they're cheaper. They're cheaper and they're actually dealing with the root causes. Like, we do not have an infertility crisis because of an IVF deficiency.
Correct.
So like, okay, IVF can be a tool because of what we've done to the planet and the human body, but why do we have this problem in the first place? And I think having a both and, not either or approach here makes sense. Like, if you're going to offer IVF, great, but you need to be talking about lifestyle, medicine, and food to at least be complementary to it, or may not even need IVF once you deal with these factors.
But that's why I think clinics should be matched with. But a lot of these doctors are not even educated. I think it was Casey Means who said on a podcast once, she's like, when I went to medical school, I only had like one course in nutrition, but the food you eat is the biggest thing. You do that more than you do it. That and sleeping, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't know anything about nutrition and you are a practicing medical doctor, then you're doing your patients a disservice.
It is, but that's where it's like a system issue, right? Because they're going to, most doctors conventionally trained only would fail a basic nutrition test. There's studies to show that they fail a 9-question test. These pediatric medical doctors failed, and there's many other things that show that. Yeah,
really?
They were. Yeah. I cited the study in, I think, 2 of my books, an inflammation spectrum for sure, and then I think probably maybe intuitive fasting or gut feelings. I cited it in 2 because I just thought it was a wild study. But it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know. You just need to know most conventional doctors to know that they don't. It's like asking a gardener for, car advice. It's like, they're not going to give you much information. And they mean well. They want to help people. Most of them do, right? But it's the training. It's the system. And that starts with the Flexner report back in the day. I mean, Rockefeller's personal lawyer. I mean, it really is it sounds like a conspiracy. But it's like, it is a conspiracy, but it's not a conspiracy theorist. It is an intentional subjugation of information done for political and financial corporate purposes. And they subjugated anything that was health related and probably started out with good intentions. You could take that benevolent approach and say, well, they may thought they were doing good, but you know what they say, the road to hell was paved with good intentions. And I think that they probably thought, no, we know best. We're going to do it this way. And we're going to change. People just need to listen to us. We're the elites. And look what that's caused us. When you subjugate information like this, it overcorrects and gets to such a malignant place, both on a micro and a cultural standpoint.
100%. Can you overdo health? Too many supplements, too much fasting, too much biohacking?
Yes, absolutely. Part of my job is for somebody that's really delved into this world a lot. You can have too much of a good thing. And that's where it's like this sort of nuance and context is lost, because you see these, going back to my Hunger Games analogy, the capital elites of the medical industrial complex, the RDs, the MDs, the researchers that want to pontificate of how, they're the only mouthpiece for human health. They're not entirely wrong, because wellness does overdo things sometimes. And we do overstate things sometimes. So I think having sort of a both and approach here too, it's like, all the things that they're saying isn't entirely false. And we need to check ourselves. Like as I mentioned earlier, stressing about healthy things isn't good for your health. And it doesn't make the thing bad. It just means what's right for you at this point in your life. And more isn't better. So what's your most effective option that's causing you the least amount of side effects, the most efficient, and the lowest cost? That's what we need to be asking across the board, no matter who you are, no matter what space you're in within healthcare. That should be our litmus test. So it can degrade and devolve into something called orthorexia, which is disordered eating around healthy foods. That's a real problem. So part of my job is like editing and curating and simplifying sometimes whenever we can to come up with that litmus test for their own bioindividuality. What's going to be their needle movers? What's going to shift and improve their quality of life? What's going to shift and improve those labs, which are a reflection of their quality of life. So you can overdo it. And I would just maybe my public service announcement here is to check yourself. If you're interested in biohacking, you're interested in self-information, yes, wonderful. Empower yourself. but check yourself too, because it becomes obsessive. It becomes a source of obsession and shame and judgment on other people or judgment on yourself. Like, maybe consume less information. Yeah. And I think that's the sort of the double-edged sword of the age that we live in. I love democratization of information. Yeah. We started the conversation with this, but we have to be informed consumers. We have to take responsibility of the things we're consuming. And I don't want the state or corporation to say you can't have that information, but I want us to be informed, empowered consumers to say, you know what, I'm good. I learned, but I know when to let go of my phone. And that's so tied into phone addiction, right? And social media addiction. It's like, we need to have healthier boundaries with technology. And just like a food doesn't love us back, too much content
doesn't love us
either. So more isn't always better there either.
If you know me, you know I avoid seed oils like the plague. They're everywhere, even in snacks labeled as clean, organic, or healthy. But the truth is, they wreak havoc on your metabolism, your hormones, and make you super inflamed. That's why I'm obsessed with Prima, one of the few products I completely trust. Prima was created to push back against processed artificial foods and bring us back to real, nutritional, ancestral ingredients that actually nourish your body. It's packed with 100% grass-fed beef tallow, grass-fed collagen, and grass-fed whey protein, delivering bioavailable nutrients for muscle recovery, joint health, and overall vitality without any of the junk. No seed oils, no refined sugars, no artificial additives, and the best part, it's one of the few products that is certified seed oil safe. I always keep Prima stocked in my bag. It's my go-to post-workout, between meetings, or anytime I need an easy, high-quality protein boost. Getting in at least 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight can be really tough, but it's essential for building and maintaining muscle as you age or going through a fertility journey in your 40s and 30s like I am. And the flavor is delicious. Cacao, mocha, and salted caramel. You really can't go wrong. My favorite flavor is the salted caramel, plus the Prima bars are sweetened with organic raw honey and only contain organic whole food ingredients. So you're fueling your body with real clean nutrition. Because you're part of the Biohack-it community, you get 20% off. Just use code IMAN20 at eatprima.com. Ditch the seed oils, fuel your body right. You will feel the difference, I promise.
I want to also talk about this topic about GLP-1s because they've been like imploding, right? So it was a research base that I thought that prescriptions have jumped over 300% in just 2 years. Yeah. What is your take on GLP-1s?
It's a both and approach there too. So glucagon-like peptides, they are, I mean, first of all, GLP-1, that's made in the body already. Your body is making this. It's a peptide. We love peptides in functional medicine. It's modulating different pathways in the body. So to be clear, we don't have a type 2 diabetes and obesity epidemic because of a GLP-1 pharmaceutical deficiency. Yes. Just like we talked about with fertility, with IVF. But as I mentioned with fertility, same with metabolic issues. Can we have effective tools that are tools within the toolbox that have paired with lifestyle changes, paired with addressing these environmental factors that impact your metabolism too, and hormones as well? Can it be a tool within toolbox to get their head above that proverbial water? I think it can, but I want to find the lowest dosage for the shortest amount of time of these peptides. And as we talked about with fertility, the same thing applies here. When you actually deal with the root causes of the metabolic issues, it may not even be needed. Yeah. And for some people, they've been dealing with these hormonal dysregulations for so long, maybe it is needed. But for some people, it's like when you deal with cleaning up these things we're talking about, maybe that pharmaceuticals aren't even needed. But I do like it as an option for someone that has exhausted all the lifestyle things and needs a little boost. Because I do find that it could be a significant needle mover for them. But look, there's studies that show these things that are in higher therapeutic doses than what they're giving people today, especially long term. It is problematic. I mean, while the more common side effects are things like gastroparesis, digestive problems, we're already having a gut health problem epidemic. Loss of muscle. We need this as we age. We're seeing that some people could have lost their weight that they lost could be significantly due to muscle loss, not fat loss. Yeah. And then the long-term health span, longevity effects of that is concerning to me. And this lack of conversation on lifestyle changes is concerning to me because we're always looking for a magic pill or injection.
Do you think also, like, in terms of, are there healthy alternatives to GLP-1s you think that naturally you put your patients on that work in the same way in the body?
Well, improving gut health is paramount there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why it's like, it sounds like I'm being overly simplistic, but it is, that's where GLP is made.
Yes.
GLP-1's made. So I would say, really focusing on gut health. And that's why butyrate can be a great tool, like postbiotics, even like urolithin. There's some compelling research around things like butyrate and urolithin, different types of urolithin. These postbiotics and short chain fatty acids can have a similar effect at modulating these peptides and improving metabolic health, improving gut health, even with prebiotics, parabiotics, prebiotics can all be helpful here. It starts with food. Like it starts with things like soups and stews, going off of inflammatory foods, decreasing pro-inflammatory foods, and different alkaloid compounds like berberine can be really complementary. It's not an apples to apples. Like it's like berberine's not going to be semaglutide, but it's going to have a similar effect and complementary effect to a larger sort of entourage of good things that supports metabolic and mitochondrial and gut health. So these are some things that we use. And then microdosing semaglutide, I think, can be a fine. Like, what's the lowest dose? Yeah, I love that tool. And other peptides, not just semaglutide, but other peptides that modulate the metabolism can be a wonderful both and approach. Where it can kind of really see the best sustainable results for people by not just getting this injection and saying, see you later, but like what's the larger root cause, but also using the advancements of peptide sciences is fascinating to me and something that we see a lot of clinical experience with. I love BPC 157.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite peptides. And it's not about weight loss per se, even though it does decrease inflammation, which will improve metabolic health. But I love it for GI inflammation, musculoskeletal inflammation, neuroinflammation. I think BPC 157, which the gut also makes that too. So the body is the best medicine cabinet, and we want the body to produce these things on its own, but using peptides when it's clinically appropriate. Again, lowest dosage, shortest period of time, sort of and
cycle it in and out.
And taking sort of peptide pauses. Peptide pauses.
PPs.
Yeah. PPs. Yeah. Can be helpful too, because you don't want to, again, always be on all this stuff, right?
What are some of your other favorite like peptides that are common and you use them a lot?
Another one would be a KPV.
I hadn't heard of that one.
Yeah. KPV helps with increasing MSH in the body, melanocyte stimulating hormone. So we see MSH being low with people that have different biotoxin illnesses. So people, then I'm not saying there's 100% correlation, but there's a high percentage of people that we see when we test for it that have different HLA, human leukocyte antigen genetic variants, meaning their body is, when they get exposed to different bacteria, viruses, and mold, their body doesn't respond.
Okay.
And there's different HLA haplotypes that are associated with lower MSH levels. MSH is an anti-inflammatory signaling molecule that the brain makes. So if somebody's genetically prone to being sensitive to bacteria, virus, and mold, and they have different genetic HLA gene variants that predispose for lower amounts of an anti-inflammatory molecule, it's the perfect storm from a genetic standpoint. On top of that, they have methylation gene variants and detox gene variants. That these peptides like BPC and these other peptides can be helpful at supporting healthier levels of these anti-inflammatory molecules while dealing with the root cause of the issue. So whether it's a viral reinfection, or viral reactivation, or it's a mold toxicity or something like that, you're not always on these peptides forever and ever.
Right.
But while you're dealing with the toxicity, they could be a great immunomodulating, immune supporting, immune balancing tool within the toolbox. And
is there a specific place that you like to get your peptides from? Because by the way, there's a lot of peptides on the black market as well.
Yeah, no black
market. Know about.
Yeah, so the telehealth team and I, we vet like the best labs that are out there.
Yeah.
And because it's such an emerging field of healthcare, every year there's more and more innovative, third-party tested, vetted biotech companies, if you will, or nutraceutical companies, I don't know how they would be classified as, providing peptides. I don't have a brand that comes to mind. There are several out there that we utilize clinically, but we're always vetting it because every year there's more and more data and more access to
information,
to new things coming up. Yeah.
Do you like to take them, inject them, or do you like to take them, kind of sublingual? Like, what's your...
Both injection and some I see similar or the same benefit, like similar or better benefits taking orally.
Okay.
Not sublingual, but oral capsules, specifically BPC with inflammatory GI issues, like ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, IBS type case.
One of my favorite peptides for a long time has always been CJC, because it helps, build your own natural human growth hormone. That can be amazing for you. Your body stimulates it, helps with muscle mass, helps you sleep better, wake up more refreshed. So that's always been one that I've cycled in and out a lot, but something I've consistently always been on and taken.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
I wanted to ask you, Will, what is, like, coming towards the end of the episode, because you've just given us such good nuggets, and there's so much in here that they'll get so much. But for somebody who is feeling overwhelmed in their life and going on their healing journey, because we just gave so much information to them, what is your one best piece of advice for them?
Wow. Well, I'm thinking, because I'm on Biohack-it,
Yeah.
right? So this is for the biohacker out there. It's kind of something that I would say to the person that would listen to your podcast. And you have a diverse audience, I know that. But I would just say, kind of hearken to something that I said earlier, is you cannot obsess your way into health.
Yeah.
You cannot shame your way into wellness. Something that I've said for years is you can't heal a body you hate. Like, that's a powerful tool, and maybe cliched, maybe people are going to roll their eyes at. But it's actually talking to people for a living. I can tell you it's really true, because you can overcorrect, right? And you can come with the best of intentions, as we talked about. Road to hell can be paid. You could start with like, okay, I want to heal, and it becomes this sort of all-consuming thing. So I just want to check the biohacking community, the wellness community, and just say like, okay, what we talk a lot about, nutrients and compounds and advancements and health sciences, all wonderful. And nutrient density with food, and breakfast, lunch, and dinner. How do we focus on nutrient density? But what are we feeding our head and our heart and our soul on a daily basis? So that's bringing in sort of that's why I call my podcast The Art of Being Well, because like the science is fascinating, and we'll talk about that. But the art is the ineffable. The art is like, how do you know when to just say no to certain things? How to have healthy boundaries with things that may be good for somebody else, but may not be right for you. Because I feel like that dance between the two is where you find healing.
Magic.
And magic, exactly. So I think that and dealing with the headspace and heart space bit, those are big topics, but things that I would want the average biohacker out there to explore, because it's nonlinear. Like, we love the protocols. We love just tell me what to do, tell me the doses, tell me the time, tell me the protocol, doc. But the reality is, like, a lot of this art, like healing, magical, like ineffable stuff is nonlinear. It's nebulous, but it's important. So things like breath work, things like meditation, things like getting out in nature, it's not about the numbers and the dosages. It's just like simplifying and distilling, like, what is the nourishing? What is the healing? And even things that are maybe aren't for everybody, but still part of what I'm talking about is things like plant medicines that you and I have talked about. Like, how do you deconstruct the human ego? Are things where healing can really happen. How do you metabolize stored trauma? How do you deal with chronic stress in the present moment? How do you strengthen? And this is the spirit manifesting in the body, because when you look at it, will improve vagal tone. It'll lower that sympathetic tone. It'll support that parasympathetic. It'll lower inflammation. It'll lower cortisol levels in the body. It'll be more congruent to the fertility and hormone balance and vitality. So that's my piece of advice for a certain subset of our community.
I'm just so grateful for our friendship, and you've always been a wealth of knowledge for everybody. And just the way you distill information is so thoughtful. So thank you so much for coming back on and, being a guest on the podcast. Because I think my community, obviously most of them probably follow you and love you as much as I do, but can learn so much. And you're always open to debate, and you're questioning things, and you're willing to put yourself out there. And that's really a beautiful thing.
Thanks, Iman. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
Where can people find you?
drwillcole.com. So drwillcole.com, all the information about the telehealth clinic, the podcast, the books. There's lots of free content. I've written articles for 15 years on there with all linked to PubMed for all the nerds out there. And my podcast is called The Art of Being Well, and on social at Dr. Will Cole.
I love your entire team over here. So I want to tell people, if you're looking for a great telemedicine clinic, these are your people. I met everybody. I spent like 2 hours here, 3 hours here now.
Yeah, you had a taco party with us.
I just had a taco party with you guys, and great humans, incredible practitioners, just great and really good energy. And that's when you're healing your health, you want to work with good people who are aligned, centered, and grounded, because that energy transfers over to you. So I'm so proud of everything you've built. Thank you for being my friend.
Thanks, friend. Thanks for being my friend. Appreciate you.
Thank you for tuning into Biohack-it. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a short review. It really helps us reach more listeners just like you. Follow us on Instagram at biohack-it for exclusive content and the latest updates. Remember, your health is in your hand, and curiosity heals.